In a land far removed from the bustling cities and the ceaseless hum of civilization, where the rugged coast met the relentless, crashing waves of the tempestuous sea, there existed an enigmatic figure who played a role as crucial as the rocky cliffs themselves, the keeper of a lighthouse that stood tall like a solitary sentinel against the eternal forces of nature. The lighthouse, an enduring testament to mankind's tenacity against the elements, had stood the test of time with stoic resilience. Its weathered facade bore the scars of countless tempests, etched with the history of maritime legends and lost souls who had sought refuge in its guiding light. It was a beacon, both literal and metaphorical, offering a glimmer of hope for lost ships, even as it concealed secrets and mysteries that lay shrouded in the inky darkness, illuminated only by the eerie glow of its luminous eye that pierced through the darkest nights. The man who tended to this enigmatic coastal guardian was a figure of intrigue, known to the coastal villagers simply as Silas. He was the solitary custodian of the light, the keeper of an age-old maritime wisdom that had passed from one generation to the next, from lighthouse keeper to lighthouse keeper. His existence was like a whispered legend, a haunting tale that lingered in the collective consciousness of the villagers, a tale retold by the fireside on stormy nights, while the salty breeze rattled windows and howled outside. Silas was more than a name. It was a marker of his silent, mysterious presence, a presence as constant as the ever-rolling tides. The villagers spoke of him in hushed tones, and they wove tales of his uncanny ability to predict the most treacherous of storms, as if he held an unspoken communion with the very tempests that sought to devour their ships. Some said that he had made a pact with the sea itself, while others believed he was a spectral figure, a lighthouse keeper of generations long past who had returned from the depths of the ocean's memory. Silas was a man of few words, yet his eyes, weathered by endless nights spent scanning the horizon, held volumes of stories that begged to be unveiled. It was rumored that he would occasionally emerge from his solitary world to visit the village, bearing gifts of wisdom and eerie, prophetic warnings that haunted the minds of those who dared to listen. The village folk would gather around him, hanging on to every word he spoke, and his voice, though quiet, was filled with an eerie foreboding, as if he knew more than he was willing to share. His predictions, they said, had the uncanny ability to save lives, and his forewarnings had prevented countless maritime tragedies. Yet Silas was more than a guardian of the light. He was a silent observer of the endless cycle of life and death that the sea unfailingly dictated. He had been known to rescue stranded sailors and offer them shelter in the lighthouse, where they would find respite from the relentless storm. However, the expression on his face as he offered his help held an eerie foreboding, as if he was aware of the sea's relentless claim on their lives. The lighthouse itself was a labyrinth of narrow, winding staircases and hidden chambers, each echoing with the whispers of the past. It was in these dimly lit, cobweb-laden corridors that Silas spent his nights in solitude, tending to the beacon that had become an extension of his very soul. It was said that he knew the lighthouse's every nook and cranny, that he had explored every hidden chamber and knew its secrets, some of which were said to be as old as the lighthouse itself. Rumors abounded in the coastal village, tales that had been passed down through generations like the cherished family heirlooms. Some spoke of Silas's encounters with supernatural beings, mysterious entities that dwelled beneath the churning waves. Others believed that he had uncovered forgotten shipwrecks and relics of tragedies buried deep within the watery abyss, relics that continued to torment the living. One tale in particular stood out, a story of a spectral apparition that had visited Silas on a stormy night, a spirit seeking solace and guidance. This tale had a special place in the villagers' lore, as it added to the enigmatic nature of their lighthouse keeper. Silas had never confirmed nor denied these stories, leaving the villagers to ponder and wonder about the true extent of his experiences. As the years went by, the enigmatic lighthouse keeper, Silas, had become a living paradox. He was a guardian of salvation for those lost at sea, guiding them safely to shore, and a harbinger of the sea's relentless fury. His story, forever intertwined with the turbulent coastal waters and the secrets they held, stood as a testament to the mysteries of the deep, a reminder that the sea, with all its beauty and terror, held dominion over both the living and the enigmatic figures who sought to unlock its boundless secrets. Silas continued his solitary vigil, an age-old tradition passed down through the centuries, his eyes ever vigilant, his mind steeped in maritime wisdom, and his heart bound to the sea. He was more than a man. He was a living legend, a guardian of the coastal realm, and a keeper of the mysteries of the deep. As long as the lighthouse stood, Silas would remain, the enigmatic lighthouse keeper of the mysterious coastal beacon, a symbol of both the relentless power and unfathomable enigma of the sea. The tale of the vanishing village of Harrowdale is one that still sends shivers down my spine, and it's a story that I feel compelled to share in its fullest detail. It all began on a crisp autumn day when I decided to take a detour from the well-trodden main road and explore the winding country lanes. I had heard faint whispers of a remote village named Harrowdale, nestled deep within the woods, a place seemingly untouched by the relentless march of the modern world. As I drove further down the narrowing road, I felt like I was stepping back in time, as if each twist and turn was leading me into a different era. The ancient trees formed a natural canopy above, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, casting eerie and elongated shadows that danced across the path. An unnatural silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of leaves crunching beneath my tires as I journeyed deeper into the forest. I knew I was drawing closer to Harrowdale. The village emerged from the mist like a ghostly apparition. It was a sight to behold, perched on the edge of a tranquil, sun-dappled meadow. The buildings that made up this timeless village were constructed from age-old stones, the kind of stones that bore witness to centuries of history. The architecture seemed to belong to another century, their charming, quaint designs evoking images of a time long past. The people of Harrowdale were equally out of time, dressed in attire that seemed as though it was plucked from the 19th century. Men donned tailored suits and top hats, while the women wore long, flowing dresses and bonnets. They greeted me with smiles that were warm yet held a hint of melancholy, as if they were privy to a secret that weighed heavily on their hearts. One of the villagers, an elderly man with a kindly face and a white beard that reached his chest, introduced himself as Elias. His eyes held a wisdom that seemed older than the stones that made up the village. Elias offered to be my guide and take me on a tour of the village. As we strolled through the narrow, cobbled alleyways, he began to share the captivating history of Harrowdale. The village, Elias explained, had been established in the early 1800s by a group of settlers who sought a life far removed from the hustle and bustle of the outside world. They believed that by isolating themselves from the advancing march of technology and the pressures of modernity, they could find true happiness and fulfillment in this secluded haven. Elias told me about the founder of the village, a man named Nathaniel Harrow, who was rumored to possess knowledge of ancient and forbidden arts. As the story went, Nathaniel had struck a dark and mysterious pact with unknown entities, promising something in return for a unique sanctuary untouched by the passage of time. In return for this pact, the village was bound to an eerie curse that would never grow, and its inhabitants would remain untouched by the relentless march of aging. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the ancient stones of the village, I found myself in the village square. At the heart of the square, an old well stood as the centerpiece of Harrowdale. It was a majestic and ornate well, its stones expertly crafted and seemingly untouched by the ravages of time. Elias gestured toward the well and began to tell me that it was the source of the village's peculiar power. It was here, he explained, that the binding of time and the enigmatic curse were maintained. My curiosity led me to peer into the well, and its depths seemed bottomless, like a void that beckoned from another world. As I gazed into its inky abyss, I felt a strange sensation wash over me, as if time itself had become fluid and malleable. It was an overwhelming and disorienting experience, and I quickly pulled back from the well. As darkness descended upon Harrowdale, the villagers gathered around the well, their faces etched with a mixture of solemnity and anticipation. Elias, his voice strong and resonant, began to chant in a language that I couldn't comprehend, a language that seemed to resonate with the very stones and trees around us. The ground beneath me trembled, and I could feel the very earth shifting beneath my feet. It was as if the village itself was responding to Elias's chant. As I looked around, I saw the buildings of Harrowdale slowly sinking into the earth, like a dream fading away into the depths of sleep. The ground swallowed them whole, and the village was vanishing before my very eyes. Fear and panic coursed through my veins, and I sprinted back to my car, desperate to escape the surreal nightmare that had overtaken Harrowdale. As I sped away, I looked back one last time, and to my horror, the village had vanished, leaving behind only the dense forest and the empty road. For years, I've tried to locate Harrowdale again, to find any trace of the enigmatic village. But it's as if the village had been wiped from the face of the earth, as if it existed only in a realm beyond our comprehension. The experience haunts me to this day, and I can't help but wonder about the secrets it held, the curse that bound it to a timeless existence, and the mysteries that remain buried beneath the forest canopy. The date was October 13th, a night shrouded in darkness and foreboding. I was on a solitary drive along the desolate stretch of Highway 66, a road that seemed to exist in its own eerie reality. The moon was obscured by thick, swirling clouds, casting sinister shadows that danced like specters along the edges of the road. I had always been fascinated by the mysteries of the unknown, but little did I know that this night would immerse me in a chilling story I would carry with me for the rest of my days. Highway 66 bore the weight of a terrifying legend, a tale that had passed from generation to generation like a curse. A hitchhiker, by the name of Amelia J. Matthews, met a gruesome and untimely end on this very road many decades ago. Locals believe that her tormented spirit still roamed these forsaken expanses, desperately searching for a way to break free from her eternal anguish. The legend, as chilling as it was, told that if you ever dared to stop and offer her a ride, you would be cursed for the remainder of your life. The stories describing her appearances had a disturbing consistency. She was said to manifest as a young woman draped in a flowing, white dress, her face perpetually concealed in shadow. Her voice, as recounted by those unfortunate enough to have encountered her, was a mere whisper, as though it emanated from the very abyss of the afterlife. As I continued driving through the dense mist, my thoughts couldn't help but drift into the realm of the supernatural. The isolation of the road heightened the sense of tension, and I felt a strange magnetism drawing me into the legend. Then, as if the night itself conspired to breathe life into the legend, I saw her. A figure in white, ethereal and haunting, stood by the roadside. Panic and curiosity collided within me, and my heart raced. Could it be? Had I just crossed paths with the infamous hitchhiker? With trembling hands, I rolled down the window and asked, my voice quaking, "Need a ride?" Her face remained veiled in the obscurity of her hood, but she offered a barely noticeable nod. Without hesitation, I opened the passenger door, and she seemed to glide into the car. A frigid gust of chilling air filled the vehicle as she entered. Her voice, just as the stories foretold, was scarcely more than a whisper. She directed me to a remote graveyard, and as we drove deeper into the night, the temperature inside the car plummeted, and the atmosphere grew heavy with an unshakable dread. Doubt and regret gnawed at me as I second-guessed my decision, but there was no turning back now. The graveyard materialized from the fog, a desolate, time-forgotten place. She gestured toward a crumbling tombstone, and as I strained my eyes in the dim light, I could barely decipher the name. Amelia J. Matthews. It was undeniable. I had picked up the ghostly hitchhiker. In a surge of fear, I tried to speed away, but the car's engine fell eerily silent, as though some supernatural force had gripped it. I was trapped in a nightmare with no escape. She turned to me, her ghostly visage shimmering in the moonlight, and said, "Now you shall carry my burden." What transpired that night was a descent into the abyss of human fear, a journey through unimaginable horrors. I felt the weight of Amelia's torment, a burden that had somehow become mine. The story didn't end neatly or conveniently. It lingered, a haunting presence in my life, a constant reminder of the night I became a character in a legend, a bearer of the curse, and a living embodiment of human fear. The events of that night became etched in my memory, a harrowing experience that forever altered my perception of reality. From that moment on, I felt an unshakable connection to Amelia's tragic story, a connection that filled my life with a lingering sense of dread, as though her spirit still watched over me, a silent and haunting reminder of the curse that bound us together. The legend of the hitchhiker on Highway 66 had become my own, and I carried it with me like a chilling secret, a burden that I could never escape.